everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to play with some bright fluorescent colors that have been mixed with citric acid powder. And we're going to use this to dye 200 grams of Knit Picks Superwash Capretta yarn. This yarn is 80% Superwash fine merino wool, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. It does absorb colors pretty quickly, at least compared to a non-superwash MCN yarn. But I'm assuming, goodness, I don't think I've done a side-by-side of this with Stroll. I'm assuming that it absorbs color a little bit slower than that, but fluorescent colors tend to spread anyway, so that's not necessarily the best yarn to do like a side-by-side comparison of Capretta with Stroll. But if you would like to see me do that at some point to compare this 80% Superwash Merino, 10% Cashmere, 10% Nylon with, say, a 75% Superwash Merino, 25% Nylon from the same company, let me know down in the comments. Anyway, I am going to pre-soak the yarn to get it ready for our dyeing journey. But first, I want to add on removable nylon zip ties. I like using these ties as an extra tie to keep the yarn ordered, but it also makes it really handy to flip the yarn without tangling it while I am dyeing. And since they are reusable, I can use them again and again. So I can put it on and then take it back off. In my video descriptions, you can find links and affiliate links to a lot of my favorite tools and equipments. The one place to caution is sometimes Amazon changes the listing that I purchased from of the removable nylon zip ties to zip ties that aren't removable anymore. And so whenever I notice this, I always change and I find a new source and I change that listing. But please, if you want to order the zip ties, double check that the listing says removable, because I don't know why it's reasonable to swap out the product at the link that I purchased the product from for something that is completely different. But that is a tangent. You can also find more information about the Capretta Superwash and other Knit Picks bare yarn and other things like that down below. I've got here some water that I used to pre-soak actually a lot of yarn. I've used the same pre-soak bath for a lot of videos and it is getting rather low now. I have no idea what order these videos will come out. A lot of times things are filmed and edited out of order. But this is water that did have vinegar in it. I don't usually pre-soak with acid. The only real reason why I'm doing that today is that I already had a bath with acid. So I probably also will reuse this water for our dye bath as just a way to share that you can reuse pre-soak water and use that same water for your dye bath and use it across multiple videos with multiple skeins of yarn. And I think that this pre-soak started with, goodness, this is a 5-gallon bucket, so maybe 1 cup of white vinegar in 2.5 to 3 gallons of water. But anyway, I'm gonna let this pre-soak for at least 20 minutes. This is my 4-inch deep catering steam pan that was already used in another project today. There may be some pink dye left around the edges, but since that's a color I'm about to add, I am not concerned about it at all. So now I'm coming in with my 200, and yeah, you can't even really see. There's like the tiniest amount in there. I do see a little bit of pink like on the edge of the pan, which I didn't wash out. But again, as I said, I'm gonna be adding more of that color. The 4 colors we will be adding today are Fluorescent Fuchsia, Purple Pop, Radioactive, all 3 of those colors are fluorescent, and then Frozen, which is a beautiful bright blue, but is not fluorescent. I do want to add more liquid, so I'm going to come and pour from our pre-soak. We are no longer in a very low immersion thing. We are more like a medium immersion. The yarn is able to float, and we will likely be, as we apply the dye, it will be as much on top of water as it is on yarn in various areas. but I'm excited and we're gonna layer these colors together. I think I mentioned previously that all these colors are diluted, these dye powders are diluted with citric acid. So when it might look like I'm adding a huge volume of powder, there really isn't quite as much because I did take, you know, the tip of a spoonful and add it to a tablespoon of citric acid camera for a previous project, which may or may not have aired already. But when I'm playing with the powder, I will be wearing my deluxe rubber respirator, safety glasses, and gloves. But before we get started, I want to turn on the heat. I'm over my gas stove with a large burner here and a smaller one back there. And so we're gonna get nice and hot before we start dyeing the yarn. We are very steamy. I'm going to reduce the heat to low. I have most of the fluorescent fuchsia. So let's start here. This is also one of the colors that should spread the most. And of all the colors we're using, the fuchsia will blend with most except for maybe the green. It might look a little weird with the green, so that is just something to consider. Now, I'm not trying to move this. I don't mind if we get speckles, but I'm also not going to worry about spread. The goal is to just have something fun and to use up a lot of the color. In general, if my fingers are completely dry, I won't wash swapping between the colors since these aren't like stock bottles or something. But if it's steamy, your hands can start to quickly get a little bit more saturated. Now, I don't have very much of the radioactive, so I'm just going to add it in little bits, a little randomly around. And then same with the frozen, which I think of all of the colors, the frozen is the one that I had the most pigmented when I mixed it because it's not really a bright color. It is more of a muted color. But the goal here is to have the colors somewhat balanced through the skeins. It's okay, like if a little bit of blue ends up on the pink, I'm not worried. All right, now we've got the purple pop, which will have like bluish. It's funny because it looks just like so pink and will have a pink spread, but it does have like these beautiful purple speckles. So it is technically different, although it's not looking that different to me right now. Oh, and that's because this is the pink. I was like, wow, that's looking really, really similar. Okay, I'm going to continue just to do what I was doing with this pink. Thankfully, I was going in light, but goodness, I grabbed the wrong color. Wow, I was like, wow, that's looking very, very similar. And so there you can see the purple pop. It's more of a purple. Well, I guess it'll just be even more pinkish as I layer them. Oh well. I think it's still fun. And the thing with purple pop is like it spreads so much, but the color that it spreads is very pink. So while we have some of these purple specks all over, it's not going to go through all of the strands. Now, something that I decided to make a goal is to not obsess about balance in my colorways. This is something that I often worry a lot about, and like making sure that there's, not that there's some of each color on every strand, but I want there to not be like a section where it's all pinks and we don't have any of these other pops of color. But I've realized that in knitting with some hand-dyed yarns that I would consider unbalanced, like some of the results are just still absolutely gorgeous. So I'm trying to not overthink and overdo it, but let's go ahead and let this sit for a few minutes and then we'll come back and check in. All right, it has been 10 minutes. There's a little bit of some pink left, but I expect most of the other colors have absorbed. I do want to flip, and woo, you can see the spread of those pinks. That is what this color is known for. And so normally with something like this, I might try to put the same color on the same spots. And to an extent, that's what we're going to try to do with that pink. But what we don't know is, like, where we have pink, it might spread over the green we have on the other side. I don't think that that would be like an unappetizing color or anything like that. It's just that that's something that may happen and that is hard to control for. Okay. But this time, I'll double check that I've got the purple pop when I think that that's what I'm using. Oh goodness. And may as well. I don't think we're going to use up this pink. I think this pink is going to be hanging out with me for a long time. Okay. But next, figured may as well do like a whole little line of the purple pop before going in to the blue and green. Pretty. One nice thing here is that since we have only 200 grams of yarn in the pan, as we're playing with these different colors, we can get reasonable coverage of them that would be hard to do if we had 4 skeins. It means that like the yarn is more spread up. We have access to more of it at once. There's a tiny bit of green left. I do think I want a little more there. Following up on some places where I see hints of the green from before, but I think that the last few pinches I do want to save for when we flip again. And I will be coming in and adding more purple pop. But for now, I'm just kind of adding this blue in similar spots to where it may have been on the other side. The goal isn't, again, for perfect balance, but to have reasonable amounts. And I think this time, if there's a lot of color left, what I will probably do is dissolve it and store it in some squeeze bottles, but I don't know. We'll see. Bring in purple pop is the color that people either really, really love or they really don't love it. And one of the problems is that it can be a bleeder. But that's why playing with it when it's already mixed with citric acid can be really nice. So this is really pretty. All right, I'm gonna let this sit another 10 minutes and then we'll flip again and see where we might want more color. This colorway feels like a party. Let's see. And we're gonna open it up like so. Because since we're getting speckles and spread on here, but you can see that opening it up almost everything is on the outside of the skein. And while I am not going to obsess about balance, like I said, I will dye it again because also I have more dye. So we will dye this side, and once I'm done, I'll come back and chat. The main difference between this last application and the previous ones is that one, I tried to use up this radioactive that I had entirely, and two, I went a lot lighter with that fluorescent fuchsia. Instead of going in big areas, since we had a lot of pink here overall, I went lighter to get some more speckles on here. And then I didn't end up using up the rest of the pink, purple, and blue, so I'll save that for yet another project. But I'm really, really happy with how this has turned out. It has now been 10 minutes, and I do want to add more water. The colors have been striking really well, but sometimes you just want more water so that way you can make sure everything is really well saturated and will dissolve. And that'll give a chance for some of those pinks to bleed and spread, and will be really, really pretty. I really, really like this. Actually, there's not that much color left in the pan, but I am going to go ahead, I think, and heat this for 20 more minutes. Then I'll turn off the heat, let it cool, and once it's cool, then we can wash it. All right, it is time to go wash this Superwash Capretta. And oof, it sort of looks like a Barbie party of some kind. There's a tinge of pink in the pan, but that's sort of what I expect from this color. So now let's go wash it. First, I'm just gonna fill this up, and now we can start seeing. Okay, so far, so good. I don't see much more than a tinge of pink. Not bad at all. I am gonna go ahead and add just a tiny bit of some synthrapol in here and let the yarn soak in it for a few minutes to try to help rinse things out. All right, let's see. Again, just a little hint of pink in the water. Hopefully that soak will have pulled out most to it at least. That has been the experience when I filmed my now multiple synthrapol videos. Synthrapol versus dish soap videos. But both fluorescent fuchsia and purple pop are prone to bleeding. Probably because the pink in purple pop is likely the same pink that's in fluorescent fuchsia. But that's already so much better. So I am going to finish rinsing out the soap, making sure the water remains looking clear. Put this through my spin dryer and then hang it up to dry. I am such a huge fan of this colorway that somehow I want a sweater quantity. Maybe not pink, but I have a vision of like a neon rainbow gradient faded sweater. And I'm not sure how I would plan the speckles over all the different colors and think about that, but somehow, and I mean, maybe it should just be rainbow on the yoke and not just the whole thing, but I think that it would be so fun to have something bright like this with some other color speckles, because ultimately this is a loud colorway, but the speckles would be fairly subtle and just tiny little pops of color on predominantly a pink base. I have to think more, because one reason why this worked so well is that fluorescent fuchsia and purple pop, those pinks, spread. So that gave us this bright pink base with these pops on top of it. But overall, I think I need to play around with this and explore. I may not use Capretta for a sweater. I might choose a less expensive fingering or DK base to play around with this, but I am in love with this and want to play with this type of technique more because I just love the effects. So maybe what I would need to do with other colors is, especially say the blue, is dye a more tonal base first and then do the speckles on top because they might not spread in the same way as the pinks. But I think that is sort of a vision. I need to just sort of sketch and plan and think about how much yarn I would need in different colors and find a pattern. And anyway, that's where this colorway has sent me. I think if I was going for a rainbow sweater, I might, with the radioactive, want to mix a little bit more blue in because it is a very, very yellow green. But I think that those colors and specks are so fun on this yarn. Not sure if the camera is really doing justice to the pink. I think it's washing out a lot of that gorgeous, gorgeous pink. But this yarn is loud and so fun. I'm also not sure if I've tried to do immersion speckles on a Superwash MCN base before. There's always a chance that I have tried that and I'm not remembering, but I am really, really impressed by the overall effect. I do think though that I need to keep in mind, because we've got some spread but also great capture of these different neon colors, but I do need to keep in mind that a Superwash Merino yarn the colors will strike faster on that than they would on a Superwash MCN. So that is something that is worth keeping in mind, but I absolutely love the results. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Fluorescent dyes can go really, really far, and I thought that I might use up all of this dye powder that I had mixed with citric acid for this project, and I didn't, because I think that while sometimes I'm going into something wanting to use up dyes that I have mixed and out, sometimes if you get something that you love, it's okay to stop. It's okay to not keep going and not keep pushing. Sometimes when I'm doing things like this, I'm then unsure if this fits in the Leave No Dye Behind category or if it fits in the Dyepot Weekly category. But ultimately, I think that if I have dye powders that are mixed with citric acid, that is more similar to just having a 1% dye stock mixed up. I might not know the exact proportions of them, but it's different from having random mixed dyes that I'm throwing all together. Either way, I love this combination. I am so proud of this yarn. I mean, this is beautiful. What do you think about it? And what do you think about this picture I have in my head of this neonish sweater? Oh man, I think it would be so much fun. This yarn looks so cool under the black light. The blue definitely looks almost black and really dark, but the yellow from our radioactive really, really sings against the pink. Someday I will dye all the yarn I need for a fade sweater. This is something that I definitely want to do. But first I do need to finish my comfort fade cardi sweater that I'm knitting. I will have like a vlog or something about that. I talked about it a bit at the beginning and I haven't filmed much along the way, but I'll show that at the end. And who knows, maybe by the time this video comes out, I've already been wearing that sweater around. I do just have the color to do. But anyway, please make sure you're subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. While you're at it, please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It helps the video get seen by more people, which helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching.